but I'm hitting it now, and we'll see how far back it how far back it went. It might have me saying something about jumping jacks, and we're gonna find out. But we're a minute early either way, so we'll see here.
Mm-hmm.
Probably should have given it more space. But for those of you that can see us live now, because I've hit the go live button, welcome to this delightful virtual coffee that I'll be having with my wonderful guest, Lindsey Tramuta, aka
Hello.
LostNCheeseland. And we're here to celebrate with you because we've got a lot of virtual coffees going on, lots of virtual coffee action happening,
So many.
which is really
So much
exciting.
action.
Can you see us live yet over on the YouTubes?
Let's see. Mine says it's loading.
Still loading. Okay, I'm gonna hit mine
Oh,
really quick. This is how these things always start. It's always a matter of bumbling around before we get started. So the opening section of a live stream is always kind of funky. But what we're gonna do today, just for those of you watching, wherever it is that you are, is that we're gonna be chatting. Oh, it's definitely live on mine. I don't know if maybe you should refresh on yours because I can see it live over on Twitter. Um,
okay.
we are going to be hanging out with you, having a coffee. Lots of people in the chat saying hi already. It's just blowing up over there. Hi, everybody. Lindsey, for those of you who don't know, the two of you who don't know Lindsey, she is a writer, she's a journalist, she's a podcaster, and she's very much in touch with everything that's going on in Paris when it comes to tourism, food, what to drink, all kinds of good things, where to find the cutest cats. It's all in Lindsey's wheelhouse, and she's been kind enough to So here's the story. I'm just gonna jump in and tell the story, and then I'll
Yeah.
relinquish the microphone to you. But basically, ever since the quarantine was announced, lockdown was announced, and we were kind of stuck in perpetual. I'm gonna get the coffee out of my face a little bit here. I'm still brewing it. I've been wondering, like, what do I do? How do I do something to help? I feel kind of helpless. I don't have a 3D printer, so I can't like print masks. I don't have. I don't know. I just didn't feel like I could do anything. And so I was trying to think through, like, okay, I know I have friends that are struggling, whose businesses are on hold. Everything's kind of nuts. And then I was out for a run last week, and I was listening to Lindsey's podcast, which I do when it comes out while I'm running, and she was talking with a buddy of hers about tourism in Paris just being kind of destroyed. And there was something about it that just clicked with me. And I don't remember what part of the discussion you guys were having was, but one of the things that people had been talking about a lot was like gift cards and how, well, why don't you just buy a gift card at like, your favorite restaurant or whatever. And that just never made sense to me because I was like, well, you're giving them money, but with the promise of a return later, it's kind of like delaying rent. Like if they still have to pay rent in 3 months, maybe it helped them in that moment, but where did that money come from if they weren't able to earn income? And there's something about, I don't know what you said, but something clicked for me where I was like, what if we just like buy virtual coffee for coffee shops? These coffee shops that are struggling, that would just be cash flow. Like we're just gonna buy a coffee off of them, a virtual coffee. They can pay their taxes, they can do whatever they got to do with that, but then they're selling a line item that way. And I just got so excited that like I ran home and like immediately made this video about like let's do virtual coffees. It was probably the most rambunctious video I've made in a long time. And then I immediately reached out to you and was like, would you inspired this? Do you want to join me in adopting some coffee shops? And you said yes. And yeah, it was really exciting. What was it like for you on your side receiving my manic text messages?
Well, it was a super creative idea, and also, you introduced me to a platform I didn't know about. So Ko-fi, which is actually perfect for this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it really made it quite seamless. So I was excited that it was very quick to set up, and I immediately understood sort of like how we were going to be able to adopt the coffee shops and also alert them that we're trying to do something. And also, I think it's a low barrier to entry, right? I mean, even if
Yeah.
you only can give €5, that's already super helpful. And when you think about the number of coffees that these places might sell in a day, I think we've just sort of like exploded, their daily coffee sales. Mostly because they sell other things, they sell
Yeah.
food, they find other ways to increase the revenue, since this is not a city that's big on to-go coffee. So
Yep.
the it actually goes a long way, what we've done. So that's really exciting. And to see also how many people were, willing to contribute from other parts of the world and who want to make sure that these businesses are open when they come back.
100%. Yeah, and I think that for me, the one of the things that I said this in the video that I made today. Forgive me for those of you that watch my YouTube channel regularly. Forgive me for this. This week's vlog. We'll see if it's any good. But one of the things that I said in it that really stood out to me, and I was talking about this with a friend yesterday, was that like what's so cool about it for me is that so many people reached out from around the world, many of whom are watching us right now, and the money is like a tangible way of saying like we support you, we're with you, we want you to survive, we want you to succeed. And so for me, in being able to hand some cash to Paul already was so cool, obviously because it was a great moment just to even see a friend of mine who I haven't seen friends in forever, but that sense that there are hundreds of people from around the world all coming together to hand this one explosive day's worth of coffees, let's say, over to somebody who's in the midst of a struggle. That tangible collection of humanity is what I think was the most impactful for me, because it's, the numbers are going to get staggering, like the amount of money lost and all of the craziness of it. But just to know that we're in it together in like a really tangible way, I think for me it was so cool. And so I was really, really excited that you wanted to be a part of it, because that felt fun on a friendship level, just being able to do something with someone else. Sure. But then to see all these amazing people who are commenting right now, just like, oh, it's so nice. Like, thank you so much for jumping in. And yeah, I see, look at you. You're responding to comments on the side right now and everything. If you want to jump in, the first link I've linked is Lindsey's link, because I promised I'd do it in the last video and I totally forgot to do it. So if you want to go support the coffee shops that Lindsey has adopted, she made it past her goal just recently, but we should explode her goal, because my goal's exploded, so now it's time to explode hers all over the place. Lindsey, do you want to tell people about the coffee shops you adopted and why you adopted them?
Sure. So there's Cafe Oberkampf, Cafe Lustig, and Dreamin' Man, and all of them, well, first of all, Lustig was the first of those three to open, and I have a long relationship with Chana, who opened that, and really was among the early pioneers of the coffee movement. So he is someone who I've seen go through a number of different periods of difficulty, one of which was several years ago. There was a car accident, and a car literally went through his front window of the shop.
Oh my gosh.
And he got insurance. Yeah, you can just imagine. And he got insurance money, and he was able to repair the shop. But that was quite a traumatic thing to go through.
Yeah.
So
was anybody in the shop when the car drove through the front of the shop?
No.
Okay, good.
I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was like the middle of the night.
Oh man.
So he went through that. Then we've had the yellow vest movement, and then the strikes, and all of those things really impact business. For Cafe Oberkampf, that was another one in my neighborhood that I've been going to since it opened in 2015. Became very close with the owner, who similarly has had to go through all of the ups and downs related to, the more societal upheaval, periods of societal upheaval in Paris. And so for him, I mean, his place was the first spot I went to after the terrorist attacks in 2015. It was 2015, right? Oh my God, I can't even keep these dates straight. But yes,
there's a lot that's happened in the last 5 years.
A lot. So anyway, so there's that as like an emotional attachment I have. And then Dreamin' Man, which is a far newer shop, but is absolutely wonderful and charming, and you and I have had coffee there. And Yurichiro, who's Japanese, opened the shop in a period of, tremendous difficulty as well. I mean, shortly in the same year that he opened, we had the yellow vests and the strikes. And so, all of a sudden, you're like, what did I just do? What market did I come into? So, those are three. They're very much in my neighborhood. They're very wonderful. you know, community building spots, and I really do want to see them survive. So I think, you know, you picked places also that I enjoy very much, and it's good that we, you know, there's enough in Paris now that we really can support different people, or different establishments. But I think that ultimately they've become such a place of importance, much in the way that the traditional Parisian cafe has held that, you know, role as a social unifier.
Yeah.
I mean, I've met so many people exclusively at coffee shops, you know, and I've had some of the most fascinating conversations with people who maybe I'll see again, maybe I won't, but you know, those things typically happen in these environments, and so they are important for far more than just the caffeine they provide, although that's very important. And I'm very much jonesing for a cappuccino. Um, so, you know, I think they're just as important as any of the other food, and wine establishments that we want to protect.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that, I guess for me, it's interesting too, because like there's so many things that could be, you could choose, right? That you could choose to support, or that you could try to pump, but resources are limited, I guess. But it's also the on that side of what you're talking about. Like there's a sense that I want them to be open when we come back, because they are centers of the community in a way that cafes were in the past, or still are for some people for sure. But yeah, like Richard, I met Richard at the Peloton, you know, and who's a huge part of my life now. Kate,
I'm
my
not
assistant
surprised
now,
since
you know,
I'm
since
pretty sure I met him there too.
it's well, that's the thing. It's like you meet all these people that become really important to you, but they're especially being members of the, you know, the Anglophone immigrant community, I guess you could say. Like they're very special to us, I think. Very important to us in that way as well. And yeah, I don't know. I guess it's I've just been thinking about it a lot, because we don't know what's going to come out of this, and we don't know when we're going to be allowed out. You know,
No.
we have hopes for the 11th, but they're going to reassess on the 7th, and who knows what happens before then, and what happens even after it, and whatever else. And so I guess for me, one of the things is that it gives me a sense of,
Yeah, you know, uh, I know that cafe.
oh, losing you here. Can you say that again? I lost you there for a second. Can you hear me? I can see. Uh-oh, communication problems.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. I cut you off.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I just I lost you there for a second, and so we didn't
Yes.
hear anything. But go ahead and say what you're going to say.
Hold on. Let me just.
Connection issues. I think what I was going, just I guess to finish what I was saying, or my nebulous thought. One of the things that I've come up against, and is my own sense of like not knowing for sure, like not knowing what's going to happen, and having no control, and having no ability to you know, do much of anything about it. One of the things that I've found that's been very helpful for me on a personal level with some friends and family is finding ways to reach out and support them, and to help them in the midst of whatever's going on in their own lives as best as I can, in whatever small ways I can. And like doing that gave me that sense of like, oh, I can do something. Like I may not have control over the greater circumstances, but I do have some influence over the struggles and suffering of the people around me, and I can lighten that load in some way. And so this was just another, I guess, another way of kind of doing that on a larger scale that helped me feel like I wasn't alone and totally helpless. And so I guess that's kind of the hope, is that as this, I don't know, the people that are watching this right now, or the people that have come across this, might gain some inspiration to do something similar for people or businesses, or, you know, whoever it is that they care about in the midst of what is a very crazy time. Anyway, and you're back now, by the way, so I can hear you
I
again.
know. Sorry.
You're fine.
Sorry. Yeah, you know, I have contributed to different sort of fundraisers, and organizations throughout this confinement, and you know, that's wonderful, and we all should be giving in the ways that we can, you know, to hospitals and first responders, and food banks and things like that. But as you just said, these places are also in need, and it remains to be seen how quickly, the aid that they're currently getting will dry up. Um, we don't know if it's going to last long enough to ensure their rebound
Yeah.
when businesses do open. I know that Shana from Lustig is hoping to do even as of May 11th, be able to open for just like a pick up and to go coffee. And if we don't have to write the permission slips anymore to go outside, I could walk all the way over there and pick up a to-go coffee. But it's going to take time, I think, before we see how behaviors are going to adjust in this like phase 2 of what is going to be a very long process of healing.
Absolutely. What do you think? Because you've been having a lot of conversations with people that are directly dealing with this, like, and I was impressed to hear Josh of Candelaria talking about how quickly they jumped on the issues facing them. Like, he's got a very it seems like his head is on straight, and he's like really working hard to do the best that he can with it. But I've heard numbers like anywhere from 20 to 40% of bars and cafes at risk of closing because of this at the end. What do you think is like, I feel like you have your finger on the pulse. What do you think if you could make a guess at that, what is the real damage on the outside of this going to be?
I mean, I've read 25% as well in some of the business sections of Le Monde and Les Echos. But again, there are so many unknown factors right now. I don't know that we can say much more with with any certainty, because it really does depend on what the parameters of reopening look like. If they can partially reopen and still get some support and from the government, or delayed fees and things like that, then maybe it will be okay. But again, I think we need like 2 weeks to see what that actually is going to look like, because they're all in the dark too when it comes to like what will they be required to impose for their staff and for customers. And I'm the first to say, like, I'm dying to support my favorite spots, and simultaneously feeling like maybe I'm going to be really uncomfortable in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because every time I go outside, I get nervous.
Yeah.
So this is this like this really awkward dance that everyone is going to be doing for a little while. And maybe some people feel totally comfortable. They're not scared. I'm not saying that I have fear. There is a little bit of anxiety though, when you're like cooped up inside for over, nearly 2 months, you start to get very used to what that feels like. And I worry a little bit about my sort of like transition back into normal life. I mean, normal. It's not going to be normal, but into going outside more frequently.
Yeah.
And when you see people improperly wearing masks, you're like, how is this going to work?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping there will be a big education component to this return. I mean, I think in any case, I think it's already in the works that the government is going to have to do like formation for how to wear the mask properly, the do's and don'ts, because there's a whole lot of sort of poor behavior that's going on right now. So many questions and not enough answers.
100%. I think you hit it on the head. Like, right, we just have to wait and see, and I think that's ultimately the biggest. That's the biggest question, isn't it? Like, well, the biggest struggle ultimately is with the unknown right now, because it's unprecedented, and because so many different countries and local governments and so forth are all handling it differently. It's almost then we're waiting to see whose methods were effective, who actually figured this out, and even after they do, we were talking about this before recording, but like even in Germany, where they really seem to have it locked down, they've had another spike or resurgence in their infection rate, and it's just that back and forth of the new normal. So how do we, the temporary, hopefully new normal, and so how do we go back out, comport ourselves appropriately, and continue to be active and not beneficial, but like productive members of society when you're dealing with a real anxiety that I think is very fair to, like, I know the first time that I went out to go to the store, like, I thought I was going to get arrested just for going to go grocery shopping kind of thing. Is that kind of a weird level unreasonable anxiety. And now I'm getting more used to it. I'm like very like understand kind of the boundaries of it all, and I feel better about it. But you know, the flip side of that, kind of like your improper mask usage comment, is that now I'm tempted to like, well, yeah, but I want to go just a little farther, you know, now just, and having to like make the decision, no, like I'm going to continue to follow the rules and I'll be good. Well, yeah, you can see how it's going to be across the board. Like there are a lot of people that aren't going to follow the rules, aren't already not following the rules. Were you talking about like a dance party recently that was carrying on somewhere nearby? Was that you? Or am I outing somebody in asking that question? Can you hear me? She's taking the fifth. Oh, I'm glad you're in. Hi, Sophie. I'm just gonna say hi to some people while I wait for Lindsey to come back, because I don't know if she can hear me anymore or not. If we're under some severe delays. But it's good to see you guys in here. I'll respond to a couple of comments in the comment section, because it looks like I may have lost Lindsey again here for a second. Good to see you, James. Thanks again, James. Your hot sauces all arrived. They're going to be in the vlog this week, so I'll be sure to share those with you guys here soon. Hi, Paul and Marjorie, Josher, David. We've already interacted a little bit. Good, so you know that I know that you're here. It's good to see you, Michael Mon, Stephanie. Hi, Lucy, Terry. I hope you guys are all still in here and having a grand old time. Lindsey, let me know when you're back. By the way, you can always just say I'm here, and you're just smiling like, are you back? Did you never leave?
So your question came out all jumbled.
I figured you were looking at me like, uh-huh. My question was like, assuming that I'm not outing anybody by asking it, I was kind of talking about like this tension that we have where we're trying to find our boundaries, and some people are going to abuse their new freedoms and others are already abusing their freedoms. I'm holding.
Wait, I think.
Have you
I've been here.
Figured out the source of the problem? Can you hear me now? Technical difficulties make for fun times. Ha 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 ha. Can you hear me? I don't think she can hear me. She says that like. So for those of you that are wondering what I'm drinking today, on the coffee front.
What are we abusing?
Answer that really quick. Oh, she might be back. I'm actually drinking Assembly. I have this Rwandan, which is really nice. I ordered it a while back, and I'm almost finished with it. But what I just finished, and what I just received a bunch more of, is KB Coffee, which is one of our favorite hometown roasters. And Back in Black, one of their coffee shops is one of the ones that I adopted. It smells amazing, so highly recommended. Is she back?
Sounds like you're in a room with 3 people.
Well, I mean, we were talking about breaking rules. Come on out, guys. I'm just kidding. There's nobody here with me, but we're having some serious technical difficulties all of a sudden. You know what you could do? Try turning off video and then see if for a minute here, because people will still be able to see your avatar, and then see if that improves the quality. What's up, Oliver? And Laura Luna, you're in here too. Good to see you in here. J Mac, Aaron, I didn't say hi to you earlier, but it's good to see you in here. Oh man, yeah, New York sounds crazy right now. Betsy, stay safe. I've been laughing all the time. I don't know why you got to work so hard to get me to laugh. All 3 of us in here apparently. Can you hear me better now, Lindsey? Oh, this is sad. We've lost her. She looks very frozen on screen. Oh, there she is. Are you back?
Now I can hear you.
Perfect.
I think it has to do with the video.
Yeah, I think It's demanding too much bandwidth. That's okay. We can still see your avatar. Your face is still with us.
Okay. I was cracking up because it sounded like something with the audio went completely haywire, and I was. It seemed like I don't know, like an episode of Seinfeld or something.
That's what it was starting to feel that way. Hold on, I'm actually gonna zoom. I've figured out some new tricks recently. I'm gonna zoom you in. Oh, and I can actually make this. I bet you I can make my life easier by doing it like this. Hold on, everybody watching at home, close your eyes. this is gonna look really good here in just a second, I promise. Oh yeah, look at this. I'm like a pro. Oh man, almost got you perfectly zoomed in. How does that look? Okay, great. Almost. Hold on. This is what happens when you go live, ladies and gentlemen. Things get crazy. Look at that. There we go. Now you look almost like professionally presented.
But I wanted to ask you, what were you asking me about? Oh gosh, what was it? It was about.
Just got to go back in time a little bit. I was asking you.
I can't remember now.
I mean, it was clearly very. It was a very deep and impactful question that really seared itself in our memories. I think. Well, one of the things that I would also be curious to know about with you, like because you've also experienced some pretty big hangups in this. To take a moment to pump your book. You have a new book coming out soon, which I've also linked below. But how's that? I keep getting emails from Amazon like every 3 days with new delivery updates for your book,
which is annoying. I know.
It's great. Yeah, I totally blame you for it too. Don't worry. But what's that been like for the whole process of trying to release a book in the midst of this madness?
It's pretty awful. I think what's so awful about it is that it's a process of unknowns for every single party involved. So,
yeah,
the publisher's trying to adapt their way of working and their approach. The magazines are, so any outlet that might potentially write about the book is, trying to figure out how they tackle certain topics, and distribution, because, while there are still, in the US, in any case, a lot of bookstores that have managed to survive by, doing click and collect, or by, I don't know, just shipping from their warehouses. Many are closed, and in France, all of non-essential items like books have been completely deprioritized by online retailers. So you can't even right now pre-order the book on like Amazon France or Fnac. However, you can get it through Book Depository, which is based in the UK, and they ship for free internationally.
That's nice.
So that is a way around it. I did learn actually just this morning that Book Depository is an Amazon company. So one thing to keep in mind if you're trying not to support Amazon. But if you're in the US, there's a wonderful, wonderful site called bookshop.com.
Mm-hmm.
It may be .org, but Bookshop. And it's basically a kind of a database of indie shops. So if you go to pre-order a book or you order a book from there, they will source it from an independent shop. And so while, yes, those shops don't get the full rate of whatever the cost of the book is, because Bookshop is effectively, taking a commission,
yeah,
they're also handling all of the fulfillment, which a lot of these bookstores can't do right now. So, it's a way to support independent spots, and they've raised tons of money. So with each sale of a book, they're going to support sort of a fund to help independent bookshops going forward. So there have been some really interesting initiatives that have come out of this. But in terms of the theme of my book is about women and women's rights and identity, and seeing Paris through a different lens, and representing the population properly, and those themes and the issues that women face here aren't going to go away. But unfortunately, in my head when I was working on this, I was like, okay, the timing is going to be great. Obviously, women's issues will still be things to talk about for a long time, but this felt like, the right moment. And then this comes in, and you're like, okay, now everyone's attention is rightfully on what's affecting us all.
Yeah.
But that does not change that this moment actually exacerbates inequalities that exist. So obviously that concerns more than just women, but women are in great majority on the front lines in France and in the US, and I'm sure in other countries. And so when you think about pay inequality, and you think about all the, the inaccess to certain roles and certain positions, and the fact that we don't have enough women in high leadership roles. All of this, these moments of crisis really amplify that. So it's at once like a book that feels more relevant given these themes, and yet will still perhaps not shine the way I really wanted it to. So I'm being completely honest with you. I'm sure I maybe am not supposed to say things like, like, I don't know.
No, if you don't know, you don't know. That's exactly
but
the right answer.
But I think that's the reality, and I just hope that the people who love France and love the stories that come out of France, and especially Paris, and people who want to hear women's stories will still buy it regardless of what's going on in the world around us, because in the end the story is universal. What these women in the book face is what women in countries all over the world face. So there is a universality to the book, which I hope will come through.
And I'm gonna ask you a follow-up question to that. Before I do, for those of you watching, I also promised my patrons that I would solicit and answer questions. So I'll be sure to check my Patreon for their questions first. And then if you have questions for us, put them in the comments so that we can answer them. I should have done this sooner, but if you have questions about Paris, the quarantine, whatever else is going on, feel free to leave those for us. But Lindsey, I was going to ask you, because you've led into this with what you've just said, but I don't think everybody knows exactly what's going on. Would you mind telling us what your book is about and why it's more relevant now? Obviously, the new Parisienne and what you've been saying about women being effectively disenfranchised is going to be central, I'd imagine, to the theme of the book. But I would love to hear you lay it out for us.
Yeah, so essentially, like with the first book, for those of you who might know it, The New Paris, I was really trying to give a better picture of what Paris is, and how it has changed, because it's usually the story that we don't read enough of. We tend to focus on the archetypal or very fetishized images of Paris, and we don't really move beyond that. And then the same ultimately is true for its women. It's what I found so frustrating is to, like, sort of after the first book came out, and I'm always very on it when it comes to stories that come out about the city, to see if they do it justice or not. And the number of stories that continue to be published, sort of like copy and paste with only a few tweaks, about how Parisian women are somehow like the embodiment of elegance and femininity, and that and
what is their secret?
Well, yeah, and like how they do everything better, from putting on their makeup to cooking and having a family and dressing, and all of these things that are so ludicrous, and but it excludes so much of the population, because the image we keep seeing is always the same. She's white, she's heterosexual, she's super thin, she ostensibly doesn't have any clear alliance to any spiritual or religious community. She is sort of like the never-ending temptress, right? And these are really problematic qualifiers, not only for Parisian women themselves, but for foreign women who look to what's put out from Paris as like a model on how to live. And I kind of took the idea that this is dangerous, and it really ignores the very positive and wonderful things that women are doing in this city and for the city. So I wanted to put forward a bunch of women across industries and demographics and and backgrounds, who are shaping the city in some way. And it doesn't have to be a very sort of massive way, in the sense that yes, there's the mayor of Paris in the book, but she's a political leader, she's someone who's very visible, but there are other people who aren't very visible, who are doing things that are important in their industries. There's a teacher, there's a gynecologist who founded this incredible family justice center in Saint-Denis, and is making sure women who don't have access to proper health care can get the care that they need. If they're abused, they have a place to go. So we're talking about women who keep on and don't necessarily get their stories told, but need to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and each of the women give their some of their favorite places in Paris, whether it's someplace they go when they're not working, someplace they go when they're they need to connect with the city again. So there is a travel element, and it really does allow you to see Paris, hopefully in a different light, and hopefully in a more realistic light.
I think that's really good. I think that I mean, I'm excited to get my copy, assuming Amazon fulfills its promise, its
It
various promises
will.
of timing. But
It
well,
will.
I'm sure they will. But no, I think that like it's a great take on it, because I do think that we also need to broaden our concepts of kind of what you said, what it means to be. I mean, everything you said, but what it means to make an impact, what it means to actually be of import. I think that it's easy to look at Hidalgo, the mayor of Paris, who you referenced, and see the dramatic impact she's having on the city. But like you said, there are a lot of women, there are a lot of people in general, and I feel like especially in a time right now, this is why I think that your book is also more relevant now. Is that it's a really good reminder that in our own lives, worlds, families, circles of friends, and communities, like the impacts that we can make are valuable
Right.
and do make a difference, and you don't have to compare yourself to this godlike Parisian woman that doesn't exist, or a woman who's become a prime minister or a mayor or whatever. Like, I don't have to compare myself to the biggest of writers and YouTubers, or anything like that. Like, you look closer to home and see what are the positive good things that you can do in your world where you are. And I think that's what's really cool about it. What I'm really looking forward to actually getting it is because just getting to see those insights, to see the impact that these people are making. Prushan's mom's in the book too, for those of you guys that know
Yes.
Prushan.
Yes, she is.
And so just getting to see, how someone that I know, who's a lovely human being, in and of her own right, to see through your eyes the impact that you feel like she's making. Like, I think that's both really cool and hopefully helpful on a personal level, but I think also adds a level of benefit to society as a whole, to remember that we should take time to stop and celebrate the small victories and the people that are in our lives who make our lives worth living on a day-to-day basis.
Jay, you totally get it.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I passed the
You
test.
No, but I mean it's just interesting because you're the kind of person who, I would imagine would pick up this kind of a book, because you also understand how important it is to celebrate people like this.
Mm-hmm.
And just to say, I see the comments. First one from Jusher64, who said that when they first started seeing these images of Paris and watching other videos on what to wear, that she saw the stereotypical images I was talking about, and then she felt sad because she didn't fall into those images. And that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
It's you keep seeing this image that keeps asking you to perfect yourself, as if somehow this is the exemplar of perfection, which it's not. And then Tom Malloy asked how I met the people I wrote about. And some of them I knew from my sort of immediate professional circle. Some of them I was generously introduced to. And then some of them I just cold contacted and said, look, this is what I'm doing. I've followed your work. I'd really like to include you. Would you be open to it? We could meet. Which is ultimately what you have to do as a journalist too. I mean, you're reaching out to people for stories, and you hope in some cases that they'll be willing to play along.
Yeah.
But for the most part, and I go into that in more detail. But in any case, I do a lot of scouring Twitter, Instagram, and other platforms looking for people who have interesting backgrounds and passions. And I'm sure you would agree, Jay, that social media does help in that respect.
Yeah.
Just you have access to so many more people. You go down the rabbit hole of like, oh, this person just tagged this person. What do they do? Oh, and who do they follow?
That is for sure.
So for research, it's actually extraordinary. And someone else also, just one last thing, someone said that this is founder Tim Capital, who talked about his daughters in leadership roles, and I would say the U.S. still is a bit. I'm assuming that this person is in the U.S.
He's Australian.
Australian. Okay, so Australia and the U.S. seem to be a little bit more ahead of the curve when it comes to better balance in what they call C-suite, or upper management, in terms of gender balance, gender parity, and France is still behind. And when you think about it, in the publicly traded companies here, which is called the CAC 40, there is only one female CEO, and that's Anne Rigaille of Air France.
Yeah.
There was also.
That's crazy, actually. I didn't know that.
Was another. Actually, when I was writing, there was as I was, going to print with the book, there was a second woman, and she was pushed out not that long ago. So that's the problem.
Well, if there were more than 3% women in the population, I would, empathize with you. But since there are only one woman for every 500 men, what do you expect?
Exactly.
I mean, it's demographically representative. I think that you should probably pass that through some statistical filters first. But no. Over on the Patreon, I'm joking, by the way, for anybody that can't pick up on sarcasm. Back on the Patreon side of things, I figured there are a couple of questions over here as well. But before I jump over to those, was there anything else that you wanted to? I think that comparison is also really risky because it's funny because our cultures are so similar, across a lot of these borders, that we often forget how different they are. And so I think it's a really interesting insight that you bring to that on the French side of things, because I think that Americans in particular, tend to think that the French are very liberal and progressive and sexually liberated, and women, that's part of that mystique and ideal of the ideal Parisian woman, is she just does what she wants and she doesn't care and whatever else. And this the sexism and sexual harassment and things that happen on the street here are shocking. It's just the catcalling and the grabbing and stuff. My friend Natasha she deals with it all the time. She does a good job of documenting it, and so it can be true on some ways, but and I think the French are ahead of America on a number of fronts, but yeah, there is some that they could definitely do some work to catch up for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, I do go into way more detail in the book if you're curious as to the despair, this dichotomy between the understanding or the impressions we have about French culture and this, it being a progressive society and all the ways in which it's not.
Yeah.
That's not to say that the United States or Australia or other places in Europe don't fall behind in a number of ways. It's just that we tend to elevate France for reasons of legend and myth making and history, or culture, and unfortunately, I think that doesn't help it to shake off the areas that they're really lacking. They love to rest on their laurels, and and if you look at some of the reasons actually why their response to the pandemic has been criticized in a lot of ways, it's because they refused to take advice and
I saw you see that, or I saw you retweet that.
Oh God, that article was like, yep. It was, so essentially the article argued that the French all have this history of being incapable of, for reasons of pure pride, being able to accept guidance from cultures that they believe are inferior. So in this case, we're talking about the South Koreans, who have actually handled this pandemic much more smoothly, I think more effectively.
Yeah.
They had the resources, and so France just is like, no, we'll figure it out. We are a great power. We will keep, we will do what we think is best. And unfortunately, that does not always pan out.
Yeah, not always. One of the interesting things with that too, because I forget who, there was one of the epidemiologists that I was listening to said that one of the reasons that places like Hong Kong and South Korea were so on top of it was also because SARS affected them more directly.
Exactly.
And so they
For
had
sure.
that like they had there was a reality check for them that already came by, so they invested in the next pandemic in a way that we didn't, because it didn't affect us.
Right.
And that goes back to, of course, still our arrogance and unwillingness to listen to others, for sure. It's not an excuse, but it is a really interesting other side of it.
Exactly.
One of my patrons asked, because Eileen Babbitt is a big fan of your book, The New Paris, and
thank you.
she wanted to know if there's a new Paris art scene, as in movements or galleries, because she's curious if Paris is losing out to other European cities like Berlin, who does have that reputation. And is there any danger that Paris is becoming an encyclopedic art city?
That's a very, very good question. I've actually asked some of my friends in the art world about that, and they do feel like there's a lot of looking back, that the French are great at their, retrospective exhibitions, and less skilled at thinking outside the box and being very experimental. And so there are tons of little galleries, but they don't necessarily highlight a lot of the experimental stuff you'd see in New York or in Berlin, as she says. Is there a danger? I mean, I'm not well versed enough in the art world to know for sure. However, I do think that it's by no means the most exciting. And arguably, people in fashion might say the same thing, that, Paris will always be Paris for very specific reasons, but exciting usually isn't the word that people in the industry would use to talk about a lot of the designs that come out of here. I mean, there's a certain classicism and certainly a know-how that's unmatched. But the handful of, like, you can sort of name on one hand the young emerging designers who are French, who are making a name here. Many of the others tend to be, European or from much further afield, like New Zealand or South America. So, it's, the issue actually probably is connected to, these old European powers and their very long history in trying to maintain relevance. When in fact, the sort of newer and less hemmed in cultures, or hemmed in by their past, I mean, are able to be a little bit more out of the box.
I think I often think about it in terms of language, in that there is no official English language, and so much of the way that we can think and operate is regulated by how we can communicate. And there are a lot of studies that have been done that show that learning multiple languages changes the way that your brain operates and how you can think and how you can both conceptualize the world but then communicate that back out. And so when you look at, like, the adaptability and the quick nature of some place like New York, or like the cultural difference there, I think that, and not to say that this is an oversimplification, but one of the ways that I tend to think about it is that there's no official English language. We have multiple competing dictionaries. We have lots of different dialects, and none of them are necessarily correct. We have slang that we don't share with other parts of the Anglophone world, and there's a freedom to try new things, to throw things out there, to move, and everything's moving and changing so quickly that the dictionary is adding words like leet, and things like that to just try and keep up. And so you take that and contrast that with the French, who have an official language that is regulated by possibly the slowest moving and stodgiest legislative body on the history of, in the history of humanity, who they won't even add new people to fill the empty seats. They reject everybody that comes in. They spend all this time arguing about that. Not to knock the Academy if they're listening, but that whole that unwillingness, and that's fair. You want to protect your culture. You want to protect there's a whole value system there that's not right or wrong. It is what it is, but there's a lack of adaptability and fluidity there that also impedes your ability to to express yourself in new and exciting ways. I'm going to get myself in trouble for saying this, but when your vocabulary is a third the size of something like English, you can't, like, there's so many ways. I sent you a video where there was like, right, where the same, it's the way that this kid said, like, what was it? My tuna, my uncle mows my tuna. It's just ton 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 ton. Your uncle, whatever. And it's just like, you run into these inabilities. And French is a beautiful language that expresses emotions and poetry and so many things in so many wonderful ways. I'm not knocking French. I love it. Obviously, I'm here and I love the language, but it does limit you in certain ways when you can't, when your vocab sheet is limited in its nuance or maybe in its concepts, and then from the top down you're being told, no, you can't use those words, they are not French. I think that has an impact then on everything from the art scene to the culinary scene. You've talked about that, like and resting on their laurels, like, being the cornerstone of Western culinary and cuisine, lends one to believe, okay, well, we've made it. And then that opens you up for the possibility to be passed by the rest of the world when they're like, yeah, but what if we try this?
Yeah, I'm typing in the chat the name of a book that I think people would really like that deals a lot with these linguistic nuances, and it's called When in French. It's by my friend Lauren Collins, who is a staff writer at the New Yorker, and like everything that Lauren does, it's wonderfully reported, has a lot of humor, and there's actually a scene where she's writing from the Académie Française, or the Académie Française.
Yeah.
So she managed to get in and sort of sit in on one of their meetings, and it is illuminating.
I bet. Actually, now I want to read that.
So
I want in on the Academy just so that they'll give me a sword. That's my. Although you have to pay for your own sword, don't you? You just get to carry it. Yeah, I think you actually have to pay for your own sword. It was tempting until I found out that I wasn't going to be, gifted it by the president. But what can you do?
Yeah, I think that squashes your dreams there.
A little bit. It does squash my dreams a touch. One of the other, if you want to think about this one, Janae Escabel asked where we would go. Basically, if on our perfect first day back to normal after quarantine, where would you go? Who would you visit? And the day can stretch as long as you need.
Oh man, where would I go? I mean, I would get a pizza. I would drink tons of coffee. I would walk on the canal. Then I would walk over the Seine because I haven't been there in ages. I'd cross a bridge. I'd tell all my friends to meet up. Let's say on the quay, the banks of the river, and and then end the day with some wine. I don't know. I think I would just walk as long and far as I could.
Oh, absolutely. I went
biking.
Yeah. Oh man, I just went for a long walk the other day. Like, instead of running, I thought I'd just go walk for a while in my neighborhood and just taking my camera with me and taking some photos. And it reminded me of how much I love just kind of low-key exploring the city. So, like,
for sure,
there's that sense of freedom to just wander where you want would be big. And then, pizza. My favorite pizza, I think, in town is probably from Brewdog, and they're nowhere within my 1 kilometer limit, unfortunately.
Oh, they're the ones right in the Marais, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They've got, because everything is Italian style, like Neapolitan pizza in Paris, basically. And they're one of the few places that does, like, more of an American style, I would say, or at least...
You're changing my life right now by telling me that. Oh man, it's so good. I'm always torn about how heavily I should promote it because I want to live there. Well, let's meet there.
Okay, let's do it. Let's go get pizza, and
Yes.
That would be really, really good. Yeah, coffee. Just sitting. I think, like you said, just sitting and chatting over coffee with friends, and then going and sitting on the river and having a picnic. Oh man, it sounds great.
For sure.
Sounds so good. The rain just passed and now it's sunny outside.
I noticed that, and now it's beautiful. But of course, if I attempt to go out and run one errand, I'll get dumped on. So I'm thinking that maybe I'm just gonna get you.
Any other questions that you spotted in the comment section over there? You've been
look.
so diligent. I'm so impressed with your comment tracking ability in the midst of this. Good job.
Um, let's see. A lot of really great comments. I mean, oh, why is the Eiffel Tower partially covered? Hmm.
That's a question that I think I've speculated that either they're working on refreshing all of the light
Oh,
bulbs.
oh no, you know what?
You know it?
Sorry, I did know this.
Oh, good.
They're working on refurbishing like one of the pillars or
Oh,
one of the sides.
interesting.
So so I think that's why I was there in January,
Yeah.
and I went up and I remember some of the navigation underneath was totally rerouted because of,
Ah,
when they're working on one of the wings, they sort of redirect you elsewhere. So that's probably why.
that's cool. Okay, that yeah, because they've had netting on it for
Yeah.
ever. The other thing that I think it's overdue for a paint job too. So I'm wondering
I think they're
when.
doing that too.
Yeah, because it's they I think they paint it what every 6 years something like that, and it's like 19 guys, and the amount of paint they use is the equivalent of like a blue whale in in volume or weight. I can't remember, but there's something ridiculous involving a blue whale in there.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
It's an immense undertaking.
Yeah, and I'm always curious to see if they're going to change the color again, or if they're just going to leave it the Eiffel brown that it's been for a long time. I feel like we could use a little bit of color one of these days, though. Get
Oh, I'm
a
sure that would start a revolution.
absolute. Well, hey, as long as they don't put another Renault sign up on it, I think we'll be good to
Oh,
go. Did you know about that one? There
no.
was I forget when it was in like the 30s, sometime sometime a long time ago. Renault paid to have a giant Renault banner hung from the Eiffel Tower, and
Oh, wonderful.
yeah, it was not well received, and so I think they stopped. Thanks, James, for that.
Wow. Yeah, he is on it.
He is on it. Got to get some more coffee from those guys for sure. They apparently somebody bought me coffee from them. They told me that they were going to bring me coffee because somebody bought me some, which is really nice.
That
Thanks,
is
Derek.
nice.
I appreciate that. Is it? It's not changing. Oh, there we go. The lights are changing behind me finally. Now that you guys are super chatting, taking my delightful purple away. Um, that's great. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for coming and having a virtual coffee. I thought we'd give it one more chance to see if anybody pops in with any more questions. But if they're interested in following you, finding you, grabbing your book, uh, where would they find you on the internet? What's the best spot?
Oh man, you can find me on Twitter, on Instagram. The handle is the same. It's Lost in Cheeseland. So if you type my name, honestly, my first and last name also into the search boxes, you'll find me. You can also find me at lindseytramuta.com, lostncheeseland.com. But Jay, I think you've linked to me um,
Yeah, you are linked in
in
the
your
description
description.
below as well, for sure.
So I'm everywhere.
Perfect. She's omnipresent. Oh my goodness. And for those of you that want to jump in and grab a virtual coffee, thank you so much for doing so. To everybody that already has, it's crazy. I haven't actually gone and looked at my. Let me look at my Kofi really quick because I don't even know where I'm at. I know you were at 107% before. We'll see if anybody
I'm
went.
at 109.
Yeah, that's great. Some people jumped
So
in.
thank you.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully, if you want to join in, the whole idea, just to re-explain the concept, is that we have some coffee shops locally that we love that give us so much, that give us space and time to work, to meet friends, that have given us friends, that have just really enriched our lives, and we want to support them in the midst of this. We want to make sure that they're open again. There's no guarantee that they will survive this, and so we want to do whatever we can to help with that. And so in order to do that, we're buying digital coffee off of them. So we're asking them to give us a receipt for a digital coffee for €5, and then basically just turning around to you, our giant group of friends hanging outside the cafe, and we're taking orders. So we're just saying, who wants a virtual coffee? You tell us how many you want. You give us your cash. We turn around, we hand it to them, and then they give us those virtual coffees. And this is a virtual drinking experience that we can probably recreate again in the future. But that's the whole idea, is just trying to buy some virtual coffee from them so their profit margins are extremely high and they can have a little bit of cash flow and hopefully survive all this. So for those of you that have participated already, thank you. If you want to participate, we're going to keep it going until they can open their doors again. I've linked to Lindsay below, so you can go to her Ko-fi and pitch in down there and help those coffee shops that she's supporting. My link is buried down there somewhere too if you want to grab mine, but I wanted to really pump the ones that Lindsay was doing today because I love them as well and want them to keep going. And if I could, I'd adopt all the coffee shops in Paris But unfortunately, the paperwork is a little bit too thick, and the government won't let me adopt that many at once. So we're just gonna have to stick with 3 for now. So yeah, thank you. Wow, it's crazy. Thank you all so much for jumping in. Wow, I'm just like, yeah, you know, it's nuts if you think about this. I'm just looking at my numbers now, including my pledge to match. Like we're handing out 1,000 euros. We're buying 1,000 euros worth of virtual coffee from each of these places. Thank you so much. That is insanity, and you guys, you're the best. And Lindsey, thanks for participating in this madness with me.
Thank you for bringing me on. I'm so excited to be doing this.
It makes it so much fun. Oh, thanks, Mystery Man, for that. And Bill, thank you so much, you guys. Appreciate it.
Coffee foster parents. I like that.
Yes, we are coffee foster parents. It's very true. We have to take care of our little coffee babies. Oh, look at that. Mikey just bought 5 cups on your page, too. That's perfect. Yeah, got to get high on that caffeine.
Oh, amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it so much, you guys. Make sure to follow Lindsey and give her some love on Instagram and Twitter and wherever you enjoy your madness. She also made a video with me once upon a time back in the age before.
December.
Oh my gosh, was it? Feels like it was years ago. So if you want to check that out too, just type her name in with my name on YouTube, and you'll find us wandering around her neighborhood, and you can see some of the coffee shops that she's supporting in that one. And yeah, and I should be promoting my book because this is like the last week that we're going to be taking orders for the paperback. So, and I keep forgetting to. I'm going to make a separate video for it, I think, because I have to. But if you want to grab a paperback copy of my book,
do it.
And yeah, and Lindsey actually she has a little quote that's going to be printed on the back of that, as currently designed. So if you want to see her name in print next to my name in print, that's a crossover event for you right there. Perfect. Well, Lindsey, you got anything else for us? Do we have anything else in the comments?
I'm just happy to be here. So thanks for bringing me on.
Yeah, of course. Happy to have you. And thanks to everybody for watching and for participating. And if we keep this going, if you guys keep buying me virtual coffee, then I'm going to have to come back and just hang out and drink coffee with you again sometime soon. So don't stop. Don't stop. Okay, cool. Well, thanks again, Lindsey. We'll see you again around the corner.
Absolutely.
Someday when they let us out and we can live our lives again.
See you soon.
Bye.